There are two things that set Belfast apart: its dividing walls and the ability of its people to see beyond them when they have to. Behind the barriers, some have self-isolated for decades. Catholics and Protestants on different sides, now facing the same threat: coronavirus. Jim is an Irish Republican. John comes from a loyalist background. They are serving together on the same COVID response team.
We're both from different sides of the community, and we have a gate there and we have a gate there. That gate isn't going to stop COVID-19 getting into the Shanghai, and that gate isn't going to stop it getting into the Falls. And I think people are starting to put all of that type of stuff into perspective.
Loyalists have halted the marching season here. They won't be gathering to mark ancient victories on the 12th of July.
Religion's nothing. If we're both cut, we're both bleed red. If we both contract COVID-19 and end up in hospital, religion's nothing. And it's about, using this period and being proactive and using it as a springboard to take ourselves forward.
And 3, 2, 1, ice cream! Good job.
Sasha is a wedding photographer, but ceremonies are prohibited, so she's been capturing the lives of her neighbours instead.
I've had people in pyjamas, I've had people in their socks and their slippers, I've had people that have dressed up for the occasion, and just really as they are today for them to look back on.
These are her doorstep diaries. She's adapted the idea of a New York photographer, not for profit, but to lighten the mood and record history.
The families as well themselves have all been saying that it's something that they're really grateful to have. So they'll be able to show their children, because a lot of children are seeing what's going on and sort of knowing that it's different. But it's not for a few years' time that they'll be able to appreciate the gravity of what was happening now.
That's lovely, guys. Perfect.
It's something that we're probably never going to experience ever again. So I feel it's really important that something like this is documented, that we can look back on in years to come, even for our kids to remember this part of history, and then even for them to show their kids.
In death, as in life, there's a new normal. Northern Ireland has complex funeral rites and rituals, normally centred on a gathering called the wake.
There, the differences of our communities disappear, and people cry together, they tell stories and laugh, and that's part of the grieving process as well.
Ian has been an undertaker for 30 years. Only once before had he overseen a funeral with no family or clergy able to attend. Given that the wake is such a fundamental aspect of our culture here, do you think Northern Ireland is struggling with the loss of that more than perhaps England, Scotland and Wales will be?
Oh, much more. The other thing is that it's a complete community event. And we're struggling with it because we can't actually see the person. So we have no mental closure on the person's death, and that's what the problem is.
Decades of violence and thousands of deaths left a legacy of resilience in Northern Ireland. People here are adept at finding hope amid adversity. That's the spirit of a place that punches way above its weight.
This is game number 1. On the tee from Northern Ireland, Darren Clark.
The sound of summer at Royal Portrush. But the course that hosted the Open has been forced to close. Northern Ireland's world-famous links in lockdown. 9 months ago, the eyes of the world were on the Causeway Coast. The contrast between scenes at this seaside resort could not be greater. Tens of thousands of spectators made their way here for the tournament.
And we're overlooking the 18th green where Shane Lowry was crowned the champion golfer.
No one imagined a day when play would be halted by a pandemic.
Golf is a bit of an irrelevance at this time. Obviously the well-being of our members, our staff, is at the forefront of our minds. But I think we have to look at the wider world and our NHS staff and so on, and the issues that they're dealing with.
The biggest names in golf dined on the finest Northern Irish produce. Those who did the catering for them face a very different challenge now. Ballylisk Farm would usually be producing artisan cheese for the high-end market. Instead, they're delivering milk and other basic necessities. We couldn't travel with them due to government restrictions, but chatted by phone while they made their rounds.
Dean, is this turning back the clock?
Whenever, personally, I was a child, we used to have a milkman, we used to have a bread man, we used to have a fishmonger and the postman. And those were 4 people that, used to regularly call with, good quality food. And this is exactly the service that we're trying to put back on the map again.
From crafting cheese for the royal family to delivering milk to neighbours in isolation. That's life in lockdown for this 5th-generation farmer. Sometimes it's the simplest things that matter most. David Blevins, Sky News in Northern Ireland.